because it is bubble watch season. We need to keep my friend Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com completely busy at all times. So now we have a preseason bracketology for football. He is our chief bracketologist. CBS, we're borrowing it from CBSSports.com. You have a preseason football bracket, Jerry. I'm going to argue against it sight unseen. App State has been screwed, Jerry.
Who? App State?
Who? You can't do that. You can't who App State?
No. I definitely know who App State is.
Okay.
I don't know. I wouldn't rule App State out.
No, of course not.
But I think the margin for error is extremely small for App State.
Right, and their non-conference schedule is actually ridiculously difficult. We spoke to their head coach yesterday. I don't even know why I started with App State other than it was just an easy way into a joke. But they play at Clemson, at East Carolina. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's obviously not at Clemson. And then for some ridiculous reason, they tack on a game against Liberty. And Liberty is obviously has invested a ton of money into their football program. So that's also not going to be easy.
Potential contenders. I mean, the loser of that game is probably not going to be in the.
Oh, that's right. Liberty's in the Sun Belt now, aren't they?
Liberty.
No, they're not. They're Conference USA. Yeah, but you're right. That is those are two contenders, but it's a non-conference game. App State should stay away from it.
Well, and the loser of that game is clearly not going to be part of the conversation, right?
Right.
Most likely not part of the conversation at the end for the Group of 5 spot in the college football playoff.
Right. You have Boise State in there. All of the best bracketologists, college football bracketologists, have Boise State as the 12 seed, and we have a 12-team playoff now. I would imagine this year, before they go to the automatic bids per conference based on nothing other than we can do that. I would, and that's really what that's going to be. Now, this is more fun for you because it's more speculative. How did you go about the business of selecting this? Since you don't like doing predictive, you like to do.
I can't do it without predicting. I mean, for NCAA brackets, I'm always doing it as of if the season ended today, except for the preseason one, of course, right? Because it's too hard to project the results of 360-some teams. But for football, it's not that unmanageable. So for bowl projections and playoff projections, I always project ahead. I pick what I think the outcome is going to be of every single game and base bowl projections on that, because otherwise, how do you even know who's going to be eligible for bowls? And also that you have to know who's going to have a good enough record possibly to be in a playoff. It's hard to do this without knowing how these teams are going to finish. And football, because of the smaller schedules and fewer teams involved, is a much more manageable operation. I'm picking favorites almost entirely without exception, or what I think is a favorite in all of these games. So I'm not really picking a lot of upsets in these projected results. But it's hard to do it really properly any other way.
So I know the two ACC teams you have are Florida State. You have them as the 4 seed, the last of the conference champions. I think you predict them with multiple losses. And they have, to a very large extent, a difficult schedule. Yes. At SMU is going to be difficult. Clemson, at Miami, at Notre Dame. I don't know that Florida is going to be hard at the end of the season. Florida could be decent.
It's a rivalry game. You just can't overlook it.
Yeah, and of course the ACC championship game, whomever they meet there. I am curious the thought process behind completely screwing SMU, Jerry. I don't know how you do that.
I didn't really. I just.
They don't.
I think SMU is going to be pretty good.
Their schedule is very light.
I could see them with 9 or 10 wins, over the course of this season. Yeah, and the schedule is favorable, but I think they're gonna of the debutantes in that league, I think they'll be the best, and it won't be particularly close.
Right,
they're healthy enough.
Their first non-conference. Well, I mean, they play Nevada in week 1-1. We'll just call it that, since they're trying to make this all.
What's that, tomorrow?
Well, no, because it's all week 1 now, right? It's not week 0, but it's a week before week 1. So I'm just calling it week 1-1. It's my joke.
Yeah.
They play BYU in a couple of weeks, and I think it's week 3 of the season. If they win that, is TCU any good?
TCU will be. I mean, it's a rivalry game. But,
right.
I think that they can beat TCU.
Right. So they've got like 2 games I think they might lose before the ACC championship game. The home game for them with Florida State, and a game at Louisville. I mean, they could easily go 7-1 in the league, win all their non-conference games, and now we're talking about 11-1.
Yeah, I think the 2 games you mentioned are the ones where they are definite underdogs. Just looking at the schedule, there's some toss-up games in there.
Yeah.
But those 2 games are the ones where they're definitely going to be underdogs.
Jerry Palm, CBSSports.com, chief bracketologist for us as we get deep into the college football play. We have a 12-team playoff for people who are not aware. You are aware that Mario Cristobal is still the head coach at Miami, right?
Correct, which is why, at least partly why, I picked Florida State to win the league.
Right.
A lot of people like Miami.
They have a great roster.
And they do. I mean, if Miami ends up winning the league, it's going to be a surprise to no one. Because they are very talented this year, but I don't trust the coach,
right?
Not to do something that at least helps give away a game. It's just that's
multiple games.
Yeah, well, if it's multiple, then they aren't even going to get as far as I think they are. But because I still have them in the playoffs, but yeah, I don't trust it.
How
and
big?
Then maybe they'll prove me wrong, but. Because it's not like talent's going to be the problem at Miami. Unless, of course, they have injuries.
And Cam Ward was my pick for ACC preseason player of the year. I think he's going to have a monster season down there. How much of an impact do you honestly believe non-conference schedules will have?
Well, I think it matters. To the college football playoff committee, if you're looking at teams with similar records and one team that's played a good non-conference schedule, that helps the strength of your schedule in their eyes.
Right.
So that can, playing a stronger schedule, it can help you. But if you aren't good enough to win the games, then that's a problem. But the schedule matters so much, especially now that every conference has got 75 teams in it. You've got to – the conference schedule matters so much. I mean, you look at, say, Texas A&M. Texas A&M, I've got in the playoffs. Texas A&M has got the best schedule you could possibly ask for reasonably as an SEC team. They don't play Georgia. They don't play Alabama. They don't play Mississippi. They get every team that can possibly beat them on a neutral field on their home floor. Home field, Kyle Field. They're playing Texas at Kyle Field. They get Notre Dame at Kyle Field. Missouri. Every team that's good on their schedule, in the league or out, has got to beat them at Texas A&M. So, they got to go to Auburn. They got to go to Florida. Those aren't easy trips, but it's, A&M could go 11-1. Really, you wouldn't bat an eye.
And again, they would have to beat some of those good teams, and if they're good enough to beat some of those good teams, my whole question is, I have been steadfast in my insistence that nobody really pays attention to who you play in college football. They pay attention to what your record is. Because
the committee pays attention to who you play. Because they have to sort out a bunch of teams that are going to have the
it's a tiebreaker. Let me just paint a scenario. Clemson plays Georgia, to an absolute knockdown, drag-out week 1, right? Which would surprise a lot of people because nobody believes Clemson is anywhere close to as good as Georgia. But Clemson plays Georgia really close. Their only other regular season loss is to undefeated Florida State in Tallahassee. A close loss to the Seminoles again in the ACC championship game, they're not going to the playoff, right?
Probably not with 3 losses. You're right.
So, therefore, I get back to that point that who you play doesn't matter because you wouldn't get a reward for that. They would be, unfortunately, 10-3 at that point.
What they would have done is they'd be 0-3 against playoff teams, most likely. And that's a problem.
Right, but how many teams are playing more than 3, having more than 3 games against playoff teams, or even 3 games against playoff teams?
Well, some of these SEC teams might, and the Big Ten teams could. I mean, depending on how your schedule falls.
Like I said, it's just it is laughable to me. This is my ongoing rant about the ACC patting themselves on the back for this at ACC kickoff. They laud the 27 Power 4 games that they have scheduled in the non-conference, and I'm like, why are you beating your head against a rock? You're automatically going to take on losses as a league, and never mind. It just it's a source of frustration for me because there's no mechanism that really rewards it. Just win all your games. I love NC State's schedule. They have a 1-game non-conference schedule, to be honest. If they can beat Tennessee, they have a chance. And if they can't, I mean, then they probably won't be a playoff team. But if they win that game, they've got a chance.
Right.
You should put NC State in your field anyway.
I don't have NC State in my field.
Do you have them in the first 4 out?
No. No, I don't. But I do have them having a good year.
I think they're going to have a very good year. Jerry Palm, I appreciate you.
I think they're going to contend.
They are.
For most of the season.
Oh, I agree. I think they're in it. Jerry Palm, I appreciate you indulging me on this whimsical mocking of a preseason bracketology.
Anytime, Adam.
All right, man.
I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you later, man. Take care.
All right. Bye.
It's Jerry Palm.